Mike Macdonald has been masterful building game plans for rookie quarterbacks. What's he got in store for Max Brosmer coming up in week 13 as he makes his starting debut for the Minnesota Vikings? We're going to be diving into Macdonald's history against rookie quarterbacks and what it could mean this week. Coming up here on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Glad to be joined here on this evening edition of Blue Friday by my co-host, Nick Lee, and a special thanks to all the 12s who are tuning in, whether you're in Port Orchard, Washington, or Laramie, Wyoming. We appreciate each and every one of you for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week and making Locked On Podcast Network the number one podcast network for sports. We're going to be diving into the latest in the Mike Macdonald mastery of rookie quarterbacks. Gets another opportunity to go against Max Brosmer of the Minnesota Vikings. We got keys to victory, what the Seahawks need to do to send Minnesota home with their 8th loss for the season, and then picks to click, game predictions, much more, you name it. We've got our tabs here on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks, which is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Now for your lead story here on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. Mike Macdonald, as you would expect, being a defensive guru, has been pretty darn good against rookie quarterbacks over the course of his career, dating back to when he first became a defensive coordinator in Baltimore in 2022. He's 7-1 against rookie quarterbacks. Now, there's a small caveat to one of those wins. Kenny Pickett, the first time with the Steelers he played against Mike Macdonald, he got knocked out like 2 minutes into the game and was out for the rest of the game. But because he started, that technically counts against the rookie, and the Ravens defense was swarming him pretty darn good. Pickett did get his revenge later in the season in a low-scoring 16-13 win. That's the only loss a rookie quarterback, though, has ever given Mike Macdonald in the National Football League. And now he gets another chance against Max Brosmer, who interestingly went to Centennial High School in Georgia. Mike Macdonald went to Centennial High School in Georgia, obviously at the same time, but that adds another wrinkle to this story. But Nick, this is the first time that Mike Macdonald, his entire career as either defensive coordinator or head coach, he gets to go against an undrafted rookie making his first career NFL start. This will be the third time that he's faced a rookie QB making his first start. CJ Stroud in 2023 and Bo Nix a year ago at Seahawks. Both those games, Baltimore and Seattle won pretty convincing fashion and shut down the quarterbacks. So the track record suggests that Sunday that Mike Macdonald's going to have everything cooking, but you and I both know sometimes crazy things happen in this league, and Minnesota believes in Max Brosmer enough that they have him as their backup quarterback. Nonetheless, this is a steep challenge for the former Minnesota standout who actually played at the FCS level only 2 years ago at New Hampshire. So this is a massive jump for him having to deal with Mike Macdonald.
Yeah, from New Hampshire, lit it up there pretty good, to Minnesota in the Big Ten, now making his NFL debut or NFL starting debut in Minnesota as a pro. Pretty cool story there. And it's funny because this is the second straight week the Seahawks have faced a rookie. Now, I know there's approximately 256 draft picks between Cam Ward and the undrafted Max Brosmer. So I know, because I know myself included, maybe not as much as dramatically as other fans, left that Titans game going, ugh, that was not as clean as you'd like. Obviously, Cam Ward played very well. So, I mean, and Max, I'm not saying Max Brosmer's Cam Ward, but other than Cam Ward, I would say you look at these numbers for rookie quarterbacks against, you just saw the graphic. I believe I did the math, and it was 193 passing yards per game allowed, and that's including the Cam Ward game. So if you take the 256 yards out of that, I think we're hovering closer to like a 180 average. So obviously it's been very, very difficult for a rookie quarterback to get even 200 passing yards against Mike Macdonald's defense. And you got to think that there's another added element of difficulty, like we mentioned with the background, undrafted. And he's had, it's not like he was in a Power 4 program for a couple years. I mean, New Hampshire's a fine FCS program, but he didn't get that proper, maybe professional seasoning that you would get from several seasons in a power program or at least an FBS program, and bounced around a few times. And it's not like he, won the Davey O'Brien Trophy at Minnesota either. But here he is. He's been praised for his high academic capabilities. Mike Macdonald said as much personally. I was just reading some articles from Vikings folks and just national folks covering this game about Brosmer, highly respected academically. Obviously, he was an undrafted guy for a reason, a backup for a reason. So there are things that I think the Seahawks can take advantage of, which we'll dive into here in a second. But Mike Macdonald's defense, especially with how the Seahawks are playing, sans a Cam Ward game of his life last week, you got to feel pretty confident.
Yeah, and I think there's a number of things that are working against Brosmer in this game. And it isn't just that, oh, hey, Rook, you get your first start and Mike Macdonald is on the other side. But he's going to have a healthier defense this week. Ernest Jones is going to be back in the lineup. Wasn't even on the final injury report. So Ernest Jones is going to be back. Tyrese Knight is going to be back. He's not on that injury report either. So Seattle's full strength at linebacker. They're basically, we'll see if Tyakata plays, but if he doesn't, Quandre Diggs is already ready to go. Mike Macdonald's made that very clear that they'll elevate him off the practice squad and he can jump right in and play some snaps if they need him to. It just feels like Seattle is going to be full strength, as close as they can be without Julian Love back yet. On defense, you've got Mike Macdonald there frothing at the mouth for this opportunity to, I wonder if he called up some of his buddies at Centennial High School and was like, hey, can I get some all 22? Because there's just not very much that you can go off of, because 1 year at Minnesota, as he was saying, it's interesting. I wrote an article about this in Emerald City Spectrum, you're not doing this with Cam Ward or with Bo Nix or any of those guys that had so many snaps playing the Division I level and were first-round picks that probably were heavily scouted by your own scouting department. You have to lean way back on your regional scouts for somebody like a Max Brosmer. And maybe the Seahawks held him in high regard as a late-round, undrafted caliber player that they liked. And because they took Jalen Milroe, they didn't go down that road. But either way, you're going to be digging deeper than you have on any of the other guys in terms of trying to come up with a game plan and figuring out what makes this guy tick. You do have some preseason film. You got a handful of regular season passes. There's just not a lot to work with. So sometimes that can work for the quarterback's advantage. For Mike Macdonald, though, it could also be a case of, look, Rook, I'm going to test you, and I'm going to see what your mettle is early. And if the stage ends up being too big, then that could create some real issues for Max Brosmer and Minnesota's offense. So I think it's fascinating. I can't wait to get into our keys to victory next, because I am interested to see what tactic Mike Macdonald goes with here. Is he going to rush more with 4 as they've done most of this year and really just rely on his front line to create the pressure? Or is he going to say, look, you're undrafted, first start, I'm going to give you nightmares sending Devin Witherspoon and Ernest Jones and Nicky Manwari and you name it. I'm going to send everybody and anybody after you. I just think there's a number of different ways this could go, in part because you have so little to work off of.
Right. There's a very good chance that this could be Five Nights at Freddy's with the defense. And it is interesting, too, because it's one of those things where does Mike Macdonald kind of play it, not vanilla, but, here are my guys against your guys. You're making your first start. Here's what we got. We'll roll out the dice and see where the chips fall. I like my chances. Or, do you just mix it up for fun? Do you send Witherspoon on some blitzes? And I kind of just think it as, does he do the whole neener, like try and stop this Rook, kind of just get going crazy in his bag. I could see both, where he kind of sits back vanilla, but also kind of goes nuts and tries a few things. You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. The George Costanza thing, because maybe they can with Brosmer.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing is, you're not taking Minnesota lightly, because Kevin O'Connell's a great coach. He's going to have a game plan ready for Max Brosmer. But at the same time, like, this doesn't necessarily feel like a game that you're going to be throwing the whole kitchen sink either. Like, you don't want to do that against the Vikings. So that's what makes it fascinating, because, again, this is the first time an undrafted rookie with that little of, and again, the Seahawks scouting department, I'm sure, has plenty on this kid that they can throw at Mike Macdonald. But I bet that they had guys on speed dial they normally are not talking to during a game planning week this week. And anytime you have little wrinkles like that you have to deal with, it can make for some craziness on a Sunday. So we'll see what ends up happening. We're going to get to that game plan for victory coming up next here on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. Don't go away. The NBA is officially back in action, and there's no better place to get in on all the thrilling action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine all of your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game thrilling, especially when your team's making that late push. So right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Head on over to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. I'm so fired up about the new jeans that I just got from Dewar. There were so many things that I had heard before they arrived at my house. The 5 times the stretch of traditional denim, antibacterial, the Cool Max technology that wicks moisture and keeps your body temperature perfect. Dewar has checked off all those boxes. They combine classic jeans wear style with the kind of comfort and performance you get from athletic wear. It truly is the best of both worlds. Simply put, Dewar makes the world's most comfortable pants without having to sacrifice style. Trust me, once you try these, they'll be your go-to. So get a pair for yourself or as an amazing Black Friday gift. Go now to shopdewar.com/LockedOnSeattle. You'll get 50% off your first order. That's shopdewar.com/LockedOnSeattle for 15% off. Welcome back to the Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. This is your host, Corbin Smith. He's Nick Lee. A special thanks to all the 12s who are tuning in. And thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. The Seahawks looking for win number 9 back at Lumen Field. I know it's only been a few weeks, but it feels like it has been like a month since the Seahawks have played that game against the Arizona Cardinals that they put up 44 on their division rivals. Hasn't been that long, but it feels like it has been. Maybe it was how significant the Rams game was and the buildup up to that one, and then another long road trip to Nashville. But Seattle gets to stay home this weekend. They've got the Vikings coming to town, and Minnesota going into the season, Nick, this was a team, even after letting Sam Darnold go, the expectation was Minnesota was going to be one of the teams contending in the NFC, at least for most people. And that has been anything but the case here in 2025. J.J. McCarthy ruled out today, so he will not be playing. We expected that at this point. Max Brosmer getting his first career NFL start. Let's switch things up a little bit, Nick, and let's talk about the Seahawks on defense to kick off our keys to victory going against a Max Brosmer-led offense. And I know some people would go into this like, hey, just play your game. You've got the superior talent. But I always think that you can't take any team lightly. You've always got to have a few wrinkles that you can go to with your staples. And Seattle's going to have to do that even with a rookie quarterback on the other side, just because of the respect you have to have for what Kevin O'Connell does as a play caller.
Definitely. And there's a bad man on the other end too. My wife and I were watching John Wick Ballerina last night, and there's a point in the movie where the bad guys are, trying to fight him. And all of a sudden one of them tells the boss, "Sir, we've lost track of John Wick." And you can see his face like, oh no. And so we can't be doing, the Seahawks cannot be, "Sir, we've lost track of Justin Jefferson." That we cannot be doing that. So Justin Jefferson is John Wick in the scenario. You can't let him loose in the building. So with that, I mean, obviously if Max Brosmer just gets comfortable and hits Justin Jefferson, and you see this all the time where there's something disconnect with the starting quarterback and the star receiver, then the backup comes in and says, "You know what? I'm going to force feed this guy because who knows?" And that could be a scenario here where they're just going to force feed Justin Jefferson if they can.
And get a few big plays.
Yeah, and he's a yak beast. He's one of the best receivers, if not the best, pound for pound receiver in the NFL. Certainly, JSN is making a case for that. Yeah, you cannot let Justin Jefferson be John Wick loose in a building. And also, speaking of letting loose, you cannot let guys like Jordan Mason and Aaron Jones get loose with yak. TJ Hawkinson is one of the better yards after catch tight ends. So just solid tackling. This is one of those games. Yeah, rookie quarterback. One clear weapon in Justin Jefferson. You just got a solid tackle. Keep everything there. Tackle solid. Don't make any boneheaded mistakes with penalties or missed assignments or missed tackles. You keep everything kind of tightened up, and the chips probably should fall in your direction.
Yeah, and look, Brosmer, I had a scouting report on him coming out of the draft because I've watched a lot of Minnesota, being a Midwest guy. I've watched a lot of Big Ten football, and Max Brosmer, as far as strengths go, not a guy that turns the football over very much. Dating back to his time at New Hampshire, he had 6 interceptions for Minnesota last year. With that, though, not a guy that's going to take a lot of chances, and he's got a pop gun for an arm. This is not a guy that's going to be lofting the ball 50 yards, 60 yards downfield regularly. That's not his game. He is going to be trying to win in the short to intermediate. And look, Justin Jefferson can beat you in any way, shape, or form. He can be an absolute game wrecker on 5-yard passes and then getting yards after the catch. But in that kind of a situation, I expect Kevin O'Connell is going to be trying to get tight ends and running backs involved to create some easy outlets for his rookie quarterback, just to try to get him in a rhythm, especially early. Seattle needs to lock that down. And even if he does complete passes, say, look, you got 3 yards on that dump off. We're not going to let you turn a 3-yard dump off into a 14 or 15-yard reception to move the chains, because that is how you get the offense going a little bit. And if Brosmer gets some confidence, we've seen this with quarterbacks throughout NFL history. There might be a guy that doesn't do anything the rest of his career, but his first start, he got going and he hits on a few throws because he starts playing with house money. You don't want to end up in that situation. I think the best way to prevent that from happening, though, it's all about making life difficult on Max Brosmer in terms of pre-snap and post-snap deciding. And again, you don't want to break out. I don't think you're going to throw the entire book at a rookie quarterback like this. However, you're going to really put an emphasis like, let's try to mess with this kid in terms of his vision. And I know all the talk about him coming out of Minnesota and out of Vikings camp was his high IQ. He might not be a guy that's rattled by all that kind of stuff, but you got to find out. You need to do some mixing and matching to make your coverages pre and post snap look different, and see if you can get this kid to force himself into some bad throws where he doesn't make the right read, or he's a hair slow on a read and then Seattle takes advantage of it. And then you sprinkle in some of your blitzes, some exotic looks to get your DBs, your linebackers involved, and mess with an offensive line that could be missing multiple starters as well. I think you mix and match. This isn't a game that I'm going pedal to the metal blitzing constantly, but you better believe I'm sending some pressure after Max Brosmer. I'm seeing if I can get some real quick turnovers and make this thing escalate out of control. I want to see Ron Burgundy on the scoreboard. Man, that escalated quickly. I want to see that in this game with the way that Seattle handles their defense.
Definitely. And I on College Football 26, I started it after I won about 5 straight national championships with BYU. I moved to a different job at San Diego State, and my first game I scheduled at Alabama, and I almost had a stroke with how many squiggly lines there were. And I lost 38-3 or something like that. We needed the squiggly lines for sure for Max Brosmer, and that includes the fans if you're there, of course. As the Seahawks always bring it. There's that Oklahoma State backup quarterback who was turned into a meme where he's coming into the game and his hands like this, taking the snap. I mean, not that Max Brosmer didn't face that in the Big Ten, but he needs to see some serious squiggly lines, that being Mike Macdonald and that being the crowd.
Deafening noise, absolutely. So you want to make it a frenzied environment, not in a good way. You want to make it a frenzied environment that the chaos is getting to him. You want that to happen with the way your pre-snap and post-snap looks are, the mixing and matching where your pressure's coming from. And again, you're not opening up the entire kitchen sink, but you're throwing enough at him that you're keeping him off balance. And you're letting the crowd take over with some big plays that really get them loud. And then, Rook, you can't get out of it. Now, going to the other side of the equation, the Vikings defense, statistically, they've been average. They haven't been last year's group. That was one of the best defense in the NFL last year. Brian Flores is still doing what Brian Flores does. The last 2 weeks, a 60% blitz rate. He is doing whatever he can to try to frustrate opposing quarterbacks and send guys, but there have been ways to beat this defense this year. They've been somewhat undisciplined. They haven't been able to make tackles. They're trying to punch the football out of the time. You got to be smart with that, protecting the ball. 3 points of pressure, you got to be doing that this entire game, because that's how Minnesota's trying to get stops, is forcing fumbles and trying to create quick turnovers. But if you are able to shed tackles when they're trying to peanut punch and things like that, this is a team that's given up a lot of yards after contact, Nick. And it just doesn't feel like this defense has been that great this year. They've been vulnerable in a lot of ways.
They have. And, Brian Flores obviously is going to bring it more than maybe any other coordinator. In fact, this year, Minnesota is the highest blitzing team in the NFL per Pro Football Reference by a full 6% over second place. So naturally, you look to the quick passing game. You look to the screen game, things like that. Getting JSN and Rashid Shaheed out in space. Would love to get Shaheed going after the trade. He's still kind of stuck in the mud a little bit there. I could see this being a game where he could have a big game. And also with that, you want to scheme and be on red alert for blitz pickup, which also includes pass protection, because you don't want Sam Darnold out there unawares, or there's a bad protection call and all of a sudden his blind side is just completely uncovered. We've seen that before, where there's a bad pass protection call audible at the line of scrimmage and someone just is a free robber at the quarterback. You don't want to see that this time. And also over the middle of the field seems to be a soft spot, soft underbelly for this Vikings defense. And I think that really spells well for two guys I mentioned already, JSN and Rashid Shaheed. And even the tight ends, AJ Barner, Elijah Arroyo, and kind of almost like a Sean McVay Rams kind of attack, the crossing routes, the stuff over the middle that could be there all day. The mesh, that's when I'm playing Madden or whatever, it's the mesh. It's you got to get guys open in space, especially man-to-man. And also, it kind of counterintuitive, but it kind of fits with it too, is you want to be aggressive in the passing game, but that 12 and 13 personnel, because you can bully this team, I think. This is a team struggling. They're on their heels a little bit. You're in Seattle. You're in the throwback unis. The team, the fans are feeling it. If you get on your toes and put them on their heels in the run game, bullying them physically, their will break.
Yeah, look, that to me is the biggest thing going into this game. I think that Seattle can line up in this game with 2 or 3 tight ends, or they can have 2 tight ends and a fullback. I think this is a matchup where you say, okay, Minnesota, you're going to blitz a bunch. Like, we're going to put all the guys that you can handle inside. We're going to do some stuff with nub tight end action, and we're going to bash you. We're going to run gap and zone stuff. We're going to gash you. And look, this Vikings team has given up a lot of big rushing plays this year. They are actually near the bottom of the league in rushing attempts against them, which I think is in part because they're aggressive with loading up boxes. But even with that, teams have ran the football effectively against them. And more often, teams have been leaning on that run game as of late. So I think you do that to try to make them pay for their over-aggressiveness with a more physical power tendency. I think that Seattle's got the personnel to be able to do that. And I look at those 15 to 20-yard crossers. There's a couple plays that come to mind to me. Anybody that's ever seen the bench route concept, where your slot is running a 20-yard dig, or you can even run it out after that, and you've got a 15-yard drag from your outside receiver coming underneath, going across the field. Well, this is a defense that you can give a lot of trouble doing that, because they send their linebackers a lot. They have a hard time getting back in their drops where they need to when they don't blitz. I think as long as you've got the pass protection there and you communicate and you pick guys up, which Seattle's generally done a good job of that this year, this is going to be a challenge. But if you can pick up those extra blitzers coming and you can give Sam Darnold the time, those middle of the field, 15, 20 yards downfield strikes, Minnesota doesn't give up a lot of the deep balls like on go routes and post routes. They've been pretty good against those. But, man, the middle of the defense, that has been soft as Charmin. And I think the Seahawks have the dudes to be able to capitalize that, especially if they can get some play action off of a strong running game, suck those linebackers up even more. That could be a punishing way to attack this defense on Sunday.
Definitely. And at JSN, I think we're squarely on record watch, or at least on 2,000 yard watch. And this is a game with there'll be some opportunities for him to get some chunk yardage again. Maybe not the deep 55-yard bomb touchdown passes, but get him out in space, get him soft spot the defense. 9-10 receptions for a healthy 120 plus yards, and that should bode well for Seattle.
When we come back, we are going to shift our gears to the picks to click and game prediction segment. How do we see this game unfolding? Which players are going to be the biggest stars, or we expect the biggest outings from against Minnesota? We'll be diving into that up next year on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. Welcome back to Locked On Seahawks, Blue Friday edition. I'm your host, Corbin Smith. He's Nick Lee. A special thanks to all the 12s who are tuning in. And thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. The Seahawks looking to go to 9-3. They've got the Minnesota Vikings at 4-7 coming to town. It's certainly been a difficult season for Minnesota with the quarterback change not working out in their favor. They've had a number of injuries on both sides of the ball. Certainly not a team to take lightly. They've got good coaching, and they still got plenty of talented players that'll be on the field on Sunday. But let's get to our weekly picks to click. And I'm going to start on the offensive side. We went defense last segment first. Let's go back to our usual bread and butter, the offensive side of the football. And, man, there are a couple of really compelling characters, so to speak, in this upcoming storyline that I think could have big games for the Seahawks on offense.
Well, yeah, we both talked about the physical nature the Seahawks can approach on offense. And looking at Kenneth Walker, he's only rushed for over 70 yards once since October 5th. It's time. It's time to have a Ken Walker breakout. I'm not saying 125 yards or something crazy. It's time to have a 75 to 100 yard game from him again. And because you'll see some Zach Charbonnet, and obviously they're going to throw the ball, but it's time for him to have another solid game. And he's obviously been a very nice running back this year, but there seems to be, he hasn't quite had that breakout game so much. He did against the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is a game I think where he could do that. The Vikings, I believe, are 24th in rushing yards allowed per game. And not only that, I'm going to call my shot here, Corbin, because I like to do that with picks to click, not just to make it, I think this guy's going to do good. I'm going to call my shot. He gets a rushing touchdown, but also in the spirit of being on red alert for the blitz and maybe a screen, I think he gets a screen pass, runs it for a 20-plus yard touchdown as well. So give me 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing, 1 receiving for Mr. Kenneth Walker.
I think the gravy and the turkey are speaking for Nick Lee here on this.
Got plenty of that.
Look, I'm going to go down a well that I went down a couple weeks ago, and I ended up getting a 22-yard catch out of him, but we're still waiting for Rashid Shaheed to have that breakout game. And I mentioned what Minnesota has had the most trouble with. I mean, I know Seahawks fans would love to see Shaheed get over the top on a vertical. That is going to come. That is going to happen. But if you go back and watch some of those games he played for Clint Kubiak in New Orleans, he had a couple long touchdowns where he did a lot of the damage with the football already in his hands, catching the ball over the middle. I think that this game caters well for Rashid Shaheed to catch that 15 to 20-yard crossing route, turn up field, and suddenly the blur shoots past a couple safeties, and he's gone. I'm going to call my shot. 50-plus yard touchdown where more than half of it is yak. I think that we are going to see Shaheed get his first touchdown as a Seahawk, and it's going to be one of those where it's a catch-and-run variety. You see that legitimate 4.3 speed against a defense that's had a lot of trouble covering the middle of the field and leaving very soft zones wide open. So I think we see Shaheed do that. I think he has a couple carries in the run game as they've been doing. And I think he has a 20-plus yard punt return in this game. So I think Rashid Shaheed's going to keep doing the special teams thing he's already been doing. But I think a 50-plus yard receiving touchdown with a bunch of yak. Sign me up for the yak this week with Rashid Shaheed for my pick to click. Let's swing over to the defensive side of the football now. And this is a game that's got, look, we could call it the battle of the Byron Murphys because the Vikings have one as well. And I know that you are really excited about the Seahawks version against a Vikings team that is very undermanned on their offensive line right now.
Yeah, Will Freeze is having an up and down year at right guard. Hate to see that since he chose Minnesota over Seattle, but that's for another day. And then Donovan Jackson, their left guard, is out. Looks to be out. So I'm liking what I'm seeing for a possible matchup for Byron Murphy. And also looking at the Packers-Vikings game last week, Warren Brinson, basically their version of Byron Murphy, at least where they line up, had a great game. And so give me Byron Murphy give him 4 pressures, a sack, and a fumble force for a big game for Mr. Byron Murphy II.
I like that call. I'm going to go with Nick Emanwari in this game because I just have a feeling Mike Macdonald's going to cook something up where Max Brosmer is going to be feeling quick pressure. He's not going to be 100% sure what he's looking at. And Nick Emanwari is going to drop back and get his first pick. And he is taking it back to the house. I'm calling it right now. A Nick Emanwari pick 6 in this game. He is so overdue with what we saw in training camp with how much he got his hands on the football. He's had a bunch of pass breakups. This is a game that I think Brosmer is going to – maybe he doesn't make a lot of bad decisions, but I just have a feeling that he is going to try to test Nick Emanwari with or without a true understanding of what coverage is being played there. He's got pressure bearing down, just trying to get rid of the football. And Mr. 6'4", 230 – not sub 4.35 speed is off for the races, and he gets the pick 6. So I'm going to go a partial sack and a pick 6 for Nick Emanwari today or on Sunday for my pick to click. All right, game prediction time now. This is like any matchup. You don't want to take a team lightly, and Minnesota has some decent wins earlier in the year, but they're playing an undrafted rookie quarterback. They could be playing as many as 3 backup offensive linemen in this game. They've got some injuries on defense. It just has not been a good football team this year. They've had a lot of dysfunction in all 3 phases. I'm curious how you see this one playing out, especially with the fact that you were disappointed with the ending of that Titans game, what we can expect to see from the Seahawks this week.
Well, the Vikings haven't scored more than 20 points in 3 straight games. I know the low-hanging fruit of course, is the Sam Darnold revenge game. There's certainly that factor. I like to look at the EPA page, comparing the 2 teams. Red is bad, green is good. Minnesota's offensive EPA page is redder than that wedding in Game of Thrones. It is bad. And so I'm liking the Seahawks' chances here. Home game, holiday weekend, throwback unis. Everyone's feeling good, and mojo's a little back after that Titans win. Give me 27-17. Seahawks get a double-digit win at home to send the fans home happy back to their leftovers.
I see this game not being that competitive, to be honest with you. And I'm not taking Minnesota lightly because I do think Kevin O'Connell is a fantastic coach. I really do. And maybe the J.J. McCarthy thing hasn't worked out yet, but it's his first year playing. I think there's still a chance they can make that work down the line. But it isn't down the line right now. It is week 13 this year. This team has been awful protecting the quarterback this year. And now they're missing multiple starters. I will be shocked if Darrisaw plays in this game. We'll see. Maybe he ends up suiting up, but he isn't going to be 100%. Brosmer's never started a game. And I just think the fact this guy, he doesn't have a ton of arm talent. I just think it's going to be really tricky for him. And Seattle's not going to let Minnesota rip off a bunch of rushing yards. They are not going to do that. They are going to say, okay, Brosmer, show us what you can do. I don't see this game being competitive. I'm not necessarily thinking we're going to see what we saw the Cardinals and Saints game where it was 80-0 in the first quarter. I don't see that, but I think this is going to be a game that's pretty lopsided. I'm going to go with 30-13 with the Vikings getting a late touchdown, but I think Seattle wins this one easy going home. I don't believe in Max Brosmer, and I don't believe in the situation that he's being handed here with a bunch of backup offensive linemen. And this team has not been good when they have had a lot of these guys in the lineup. They're playing in Seattle. I think the 12s are going to bring it after Thanksgiving. They are going to be fully energized from their turkey. Had a couple days to let the food settle. They're going to be ready to let it rip. I think Seattle wins this one in convincing fashion. We'll see what ends up happening on Sunday at Lumen Field. As always, you can follow me on X Blue Sky at Corbin Smith NFL. You can follow Nick at NickLee51. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Seahawks on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast to make sure you don't miss a single episode. Coming up Sunday after the game, we've got Seahawks Squad Show with Anders Hurst, Rob Rang, and of course, Robert Turbo Turbin. And I'll have my post-game show coming in a few hours after the final whistle at Lumen Field. So a double dip coming your way. Make sure to subscribe and listen in. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the game. Go Hawks.